Picture the screen door slamming behind you at 7 in the morning, the grass still wet against your bare feet, the sun already warm on the back of your neck, and a whole day stretching out ahead of you with no plan, no schedule, and no one telling you where to be. This wasn't just any summer. This was summer in 1980s America, when the days were endless, the streets belonged to the kids, and the only rule that mattered was being home when the street lights came on. For those who lived it, summer back then wasn't about resorts or screens or scheduled activities. It was about freedom, the kind of freedom kids today will never know. One bike, one neighborhood, one long golden day after another. If you grew up in the 80s, prepare yourself. These memories are going to hit you right where it hurts. You woke up without an alarm. There was no reason for one. School was out, and the morning belonged to you. You'd lie there for a minute in the heat, the box fan in the window humming and rattling, pushing warm air around the room because almost nobody had real air conditioning. Maybe a window unit in your parents' room that you weren't allowed to touch. The rest of the house just baked. You slept on top of the covers, sometimes with a wet washcloth on your forehead, the sheets sticking to your skin, and you didn't complain about it. Nobody did. That was just summer. You threw on yesterday's shorts off the floor, grabbed a bowl of cereal, ate it standing up in front of the TV watching whatever cartoons were still on, and then you were gone. Out the door, the whole day waiting. Your bike was everything. It wasn't transportation, it was your wings. A BMX with knobby tires, or a hand-me-down with a banana seat and a slightly bent rim, the spokes threaded with plastic beads, or a baseball card clothes-pinned to make it sound like a motorcycle. You knew every crack in every sidewalk for 3 miles in every direction. You knew which driveways you could cut through, which dogs to avoid, which hills were worth the climb because the ride down made your stomach drop. You rode standing up on the pedals, no hands if you were brave, popping wheelies off the curb, no helmet, no pads. Skinned knees were a badge of honor, and you had a permanent scab on at least one of them all summer long. Your mom would dab it with that orange stuff that stung worse than the fall, blow on it, and send you right back out the door. And out you went, into a neighborhood full of kids. You didn't make plans. You didn't text anybody. You just rode to your friend's house, dropped your bike on the front lawn, and yelled their name from the yard. If they were home, they came out. If they weren't, you rode to the next house. By mid-morning, there'd be a whole pack of you, ages 6 to 13, roaming free. Nobody's parents knew exactly where you were, and nobody worried. You were somewhere in the neighborhood. That was enough. You'd be gone for hours, and the only thing anyone said when you left was, "Be home for dinner." That was the whole conversation. The heat by noon was a living thing. The asphalt shimmered. Your shadow shrank to nothing beneath you. And when it got too hot to do anything else, somebody's mom would turn on the garden hose, and that was a party. You'd drink straight from it. That warm, rubbery first gulp followed by cold water that tasted faintly of the hose itself, and somehow it was the best water you ever drank. There was the sprinkler, the oscillating kind that went back and forth, and you'd dare each other to run through it without flinching. If a family on the block had a slip and slide, you'd hear about it, and you'd show up, and you'd throw yourself down a strip of wet yellow plastic across a lumpy lawn, hitting every hidden rock and root, and you'd get up bruised and grinning and do it again. Bathing suits were optional. Cut-off shorts worked fine. You dried off in about 4 minutes flat in that sun. And then, that sound, far off at first, tinny and warbling, a song you knew by heart drifting through the heavy summer air. The ice cream truck. The entire neighborhood went into motion at once. Kids sprinting home, bursting through screen doors, begging for change, digging through couch cushions, through the ashtray in the car, through the bottom of a purse. $1 was a fortune. You'd run back out, sweaty palm clutching coins, and chase that truck down the block if you had to. A bomb pop, red, white, and blue, dripping down your wrist before you could finish it. A push-up, a chipwich, a screwball with the gumball at the bottom you'd dig for with your tongue. And if you didn't have money that day, your friend who did would buy something, and you'd ask for a bite, and they'd give you one, because that's how it worked. When there was no truck and no money, there was the freezer at home. A box of popsicles you'd split down the middle, twin sticks, and you'd snap one in half to share. Otter Pops, those plastic tubes of frozen sugar water you'd cut open with scissors or just bite the end off. Kool-Aid mixed in a giant pitcher, way too sweet, the powder leaving a ring on the bottom of the glass. A spoonful of the dry mix on your tongue if you were feeling wild, lips stained red or purple for the rest of the day. You ran on sugar and sunshine and not much else, and you never sat still long enough to feel it. The whole world was a game waiting to happen. You played baseball in the street with a tennis ball and a manhole cover for home plate, calling timeout every time a car came. You played in the vacant lot, the one with the weeds taller than you in places where you'd built something out of scrap wood that you called a fort. You played kick the can and ghost in the graveyard and freeze tag until your lungs burned. You climbed trees higher than you should have. You explored the woods behind the houses, the drainage creek, the construction site where the new homes were going up, walking the bare wooden frames like they were your own private jungle gym. You came home filthy, grass stains, dirt under your nails, a splinter. You'd dig out later, and you'd go right back the next day and do it all again. Lunch was whatever you could grab between adventures. A bologna sandwich on white bread, peanut butter and jelly with the crust still on because you were too hungry to care. A handful of chips straight from the bag. You ate it fast, standing at the counter, and you were gone again before the screen door finished swinging. Sometimes you didn't go home at all. You'd eat at whatever house you happened to be at, and somebody's mom would just feed you, no questions, an extra plate set down like it was nothing. You knew which houses had the good snacks, the ones with the soda, the ones with the cookies that weren't store brand, and you knew which moms would let you stay and which ones would shoo you home. The public pool was its own kingdom. You'd ride your bikes there in a pack, towels slung around your necks, a couple of crumpled dollars for the entry, and a snack. The smell of chlorine that got into everything. The hot concrete that burned your feet so you'd hop and run to the water's edge. The lifeguard's whistle. The diving board, where you'd work up the nerve all summer to finally jump off the high one. You'd stay in until your fingers wrinkled and your lips turned faintly blue, then lie on the hot pavement to warm up and do it all over again. Adult Swim. Those agonizing 15 minutes when all the kids had to get out and just the grown-ups floated lazily while you waited at the edge, counting the seconds. By the time you rode home, your hair was stiff with chlorine and your shoulders were pink and you slept like the dead that night. As the day cooled, the games changed. The light went gold, then amber, that long slanting late afternoon sun that made everything look like a photograph. The fathers came home from work, the sound of car doors and lawnmowers, the smell of charcoal lighter fluid as grills came to life up and down the block. Hamburgers and hot dogs, corn on the cob, watermelon eaten outside so you could spit the seeds and let the juice run down your arms. You ate on the back step, on a picnic table, on a towel in the grass. The grown-ups sat in lawn chairs, those woven aluminum ones, talking over the fence with the neighbors, the conversation drifting on the warm evening air while the kids kept playing in the half-light. And then the magic hour. The sky deepened to purple, the first stars appearing, and the air filled with them. Fireflies, lightning bugs, blinking on and off across every yard, drifting up out of the grass. You ran after them with a glass jar, the lid punched with holes from a nail and a hammer, your mom's careful work. You catch a dozen, watch them glow in your cupped hands, put them in the jar to make a lantern, and then, because somebody always reminded you, you let them go before bed. The neighborhood at dusk was the best place on earth. The pack of kids, sweaty and tired and not ready to quit. The adults' voices in the background, the cicadas droning, and somewhere, the porch light flicking on, then the street lights humming to life one by one, orange and buzzing, your signal that the day was ending. The street lights, that was the rule, the only rule. When they came on, you went home. Not when a phone told you to, not when a parent came looking. You just knew. The whole neighborhood knew. And you'd squeeze out the last few minutes, that final round of tag, that last lap on the bike, before peeling off one by one toward home. See you tomorrow. That was the goodbye, and you meant it, because tomorrow would be exactly the same, and you wouldn't have wanted it any other way. There were the big days too, the 4th of July, when the whole town turned out. A parade down Main Street, kids on decorated bikes, fire trucks, a marching band slightly out of tune, a cookout that lasted all afternoon, and then the fireworks, the whole community spread out on blankets in a field or a parking lot or somebody's backyard, the little kids waving sparklers, the dads lighting things they probably shouldn't have, the first big boom and everyone going quiet, faces tilted up, lit blue, then red, then gold, smoke drifting across the field, babies crying at the noise. You lay on your back on a scratchy blanket between your parents, full of hot dogs and soda, and you felt, without ever having the words for it, that you were exactly where you belonged. There was the county fair toward the end of the summer, the lights of the Ferris wheel turning against the dark, the smell of funnel cake and fried everything, the carnival games you could never quite win, the livestock barns where the farm kids showed their animals, the way you saved your change for weeks just to ride the rickety rides bolted together by a crew that had rolled into town 2 days before. You stumble out the gate at the end of the night, exhausted, a cheap stuffed animal under your arm, sticky from cotton candy, and you'd feel summer slipping away and you weren't ready for it to end. There was the family vacation, the whole clan packed into a station wagon with the fake wood paneling, no seat belts, you and your siblings sprawled in the way back with a pillow and a deck of cards. Don't make me turn this car around. The endless highway, the rest stops, the motel with the pool that made the whole trip worth it. Or maybe you didn't go anywhere at all, and that was fine too, because home in the summer was already everything, and the simple things. The lemonade stand you set up on the corner with a cardboard sign, charging a nickel, mostly selling to your own parents and the mailman. The penny candy at the corner store, where $1 bought a whole paper bag and the old man behind the counter waited patiently while you agonized over every choice. The library in the cool, dark afternoon when it got too hot. The summer reading program with the little chart you filled in. The drive-in movie where you fell asleep in the back of the car before the second feature. The arcade where a pocket full of quarters could last all afternoon, the bleeps and bloops, the high score with your initials on it, the boombox somebody carried on their shoulder, the cassette tape you'd recorded off the radio, fingers ready on the buttons to catch your favorite song. Even the rainy days had their own kind of magic. The summer thunderstorm that rolled in fast on a hot afternoon, the sky going green-black, the wind kicking up and turning the leaves so their silver sides faced out. You would watch it come from the porch, The first fat drops hitting the hot sidewalk and rising up as that smell. The one everybody knows and nobody can name. The thunder you felt in your chest. And when it passed, you would be back out in minutes, riding through the puddles, sailing through the runoff in the gutters, the whole neighborhood washed clean and steaming in the returning sun. On the days it settled in for good, you stayed inside and it felt like a holiday. Board games on the living room floor, building something out of blocks, reading comics, watching whatever was on, just 3 or 4 channels, and you watched it anyway. By the next morning, the sun was back and so were you. You did not know it was special. That is the thing. You had no idea. You thought every summer would be like this, that this was just how the world worked, that you would always have the bikes and the pack of friends and the endless days. You did not know you were living in the last era before everything changed, before the screens and the schedules and the parents who watched every move, before kids stopped knocking on doors and started staying inside. You were just a kid, sweaty and sunburned and gloriously free, and you had no idea you would spend the rest of your life trying to get that feeling back. Ask anyone who was a kid in the 1980s in America, and they'll tell you the same thing. We had less. We had no air conditioning, no cell phones, no internet, no money for half the things we wanted. The houses were hot, and the cars had no seatbelts, and the popsicles cost a quarter we often didn't have. But somehow, it felt like more. There was freedom. The whole neighborhood was ours. The whole day was ours. We came and went as we pleased, and the world felt safe and big and full of possibility. We had friends we made just by yelling their name from the front yard. We had a community that fed us and watched out for us without ever making a thing of it. We had fireflies and garden hoses and the sound of the ice cream truck. We had each other, and maybe that's what makes these memories hurt so much. Not because the 1980s were perfect. They weren't. There were plenty of things wrong with them, plenty of things we know better about now. But because that summer freedom felt earned, felt real, felt like ours in a way that nothing today quite does. The long golden days, the streetlight curfew, the way the whole world shrank down to one neighborhood and one bike and one good friend. And that was enough. That was everything. Summer today is easier, safer, more comfortable. The houses are cool and the kids are watched and nobody drinks from a garden hose anymore. But something was lost along the way. The freedom, the simplicity, the feeling of a day with no plan and no limit, the whole thing yours to feel. If you grew up in the 1980s in America, you know exactly what I mean. The screen door slamming, the grass wet on your bare feet at 7 in the morning, the fireflies rising in the dusk and the streetlights humming on, and the whole pack of you not ready to go home. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and we'll never forget it. If this brought back memories, share it with someone who lived it too. Hit subscribe to keep these stories alive, and drop a comment telling us your favorite summer memory from the 1980s, the bike you rode, the friends you ran with, the place you would go all day. I really do love reading every single one. Until next time, hold those memories close. They are worth more than anything money could ever buy.